and welcome to a very relevant session here today as we begin 2020 with the two hottest topics in the Punjab. And if you are Punjabi, then chances are that you have been talking at length about these two topics for the last couple of months. The first topic is, of course, tourism. From the Prime Minister all the way down, we've been hearing how Pakistan is going to launch its tourism industry in a big way. And almost sort of as a response to that, suddenly in December 2019, Pakistan featured as the #1 destination for tourism in magazines, blogs, and travel websites across the world, including Condé Nast, which is considered to be the Rolls-Royce of travel magazines in the world. So that's the first topic, and that's a very positive topic which promises a lot of benefits to Pakistan. But then we also topped another list, and that list hasn't been that great. Lahore and several other cities in the Punjab have also been the #1 city globally for the poorest air quality in the world. And of course, anyone who is a resident of Lahore or cities close to Lahore has experienced the detriment that this poor air quality brings to our health. So we have just the right time here today to discuss this. And I'll start off with the only lady in the panel, Mrs. Tiwana. Auntie Imran is a graduate of MIT in Environment, Urban Planning and of course Architecture, for which she is perhaps best known. She has worked on projects across the world on cities where she's offered her expertise in urban planning, the environment and how to make cities green. And but she is best known to almost every Lahori for her efforts where she has a legacy in fighting for all of the right causes and trying to steer development that perhaps hasn't been best for the city of Lahore in the right direction. So thank you, Auntie Imran, for joining us. Then we have Mr. Hammad, who is the CEO of WWF. He has a vast 30-year experience in climate change advocacy and responses. He's represented WWF internationally and nationally on a variety of fora, and he also sits on the Prime Minister's Climate Change Committee, and he's dedicated to engaging civil society and the government to bring about positive change. And then last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Faisal Siddiqui, who has been the president of Daewoo Express now since 2011. His background before that was in consultancy and banking, but he also has an MBA from Columbia University, so he's going to give us a business angle to this whole debate today. I'll start off with Hammad, and hopefully we can kick off the discussion to provide the audience with a bit of context to our topic today, which is our 5th season smog and the other big buzzword, tourism. So I know that WWF ran a smog awareness campaign this season where their iconic panda had a mask to kind of let the public know what was going on. But on the other hand, Hammad, I know that ever since I've known you, and I'm sure way before that, you've always said that one of the best things about Pakistan is the natural heritage that we have from our mountains to our coastal areas. So how do you see this kind of contradiction reconciling as we start the new year?
Thank you. Thank you, Attiya. Let me start with a positive aspect of this debate. As you mentioned, this is a country which is blessed with huge natural assets. If you look at the highest mountains in the world, they are present in Pakistan. 3 ranges, Hindu Kush, from Himalayas. You come further down and you find different types of forest. still intact and healthy forest. Come further down and you have fertile agricultural land. Then you have deserts, you have all kinds of lakes, and then you have a long coast. The result is that these different ecological zones are habitat of different wildlife. I mean, this is a country which has leopards, common leopards, snow leopard, this has bear, brown, black bear, river dolphins, all kinds of mountain ungulates, different kinds of birds, both indigenous and migratory birds. Now, when different magazines, different vloggers, different bloggers say that this is the country for adventure travel, this is the country which has the best mountain landscape, this is the country which is still unexplored. These are facts. This is the country which is still unexplored. Now, so this is one side. When we talk about tourism, tourism has, obviously, I think today we should, I would not like to cover the religious or the cultural or the recreational tourism. My focus will be on ecotourism, which is how to explore nature. If you want to explore these, nature, we want to have good, healthy environment, both at those places and also places where we expect people, that they will come, whether they're foreigners or the domestic tourists. We can't say that if Lahore, is one of the most polluted city, and we still want to brag that, look, forget Lahore, forget Faisal, Gujranwala, or those areas, and even, forget Gilgit, but we still have pristine environments, and we still have all those areas where you can have nature walks, where you can have wildlife sighting, where you can have bird watching, and so on and so forth. So it's very important if you want, and then in that scenario, there's a government which is supposed to be a green government. There's a prime minister who loves outdoor, who loves nature. If you look at his tweets in the last couple of years, he strongly feels that this sector has a huge potential, both economical, social, and is good for the country. And he talks about sustainable tourism, but the definition and understanding of sustainable tourism, unfortunately, you don't see, that understanding is there. There's still people, when they talk about sustainable tourism, they want to establish theme parks in Galiyat. There's still people, when they talk about tourism, they feel, just to give you one example, when the government of Punjab launched New Money project, this was Patriata forest, that was the last healthy forest left in Punjab. We literally pleaded, we begged to the government, please don't touch this. There was a Singaporean company who was ordered this consultancy, and they said, we'll bring this, helipads and 5-star hotels and casinos, there will be theme park. So all that brown, grey infrastructure which you can find in Faisalabad, Gujranwala or Islamabad or Lahore, but not, you will be the last person to have that in the last healthy forest left in this province. So when they didn't listen, then we approached the court. And the good thing is that, as part of this green judicial activism, the court literally shelved that project. Now, just lastly, linking it with, the policies, the smog and all those issues. If you don't have proper policies, and even if you have policies and you don't have proper operational controls, the result is that you have issues which result in serious crises like smog, which is, I can, speak for hours, the causes and the effects of smog, but this is like a serious issue. But let me, stop here.
And then, because I want to come back to what you said about the kind of tourism that we've been seeing happening and whether anything has changed in terms of policy or not. I know we hear a lot, but I have a few questions for you about what's actually happening right now. But I want to you, Auntie Imran, you have, like I said before, a legacy in advocacy and trying to protect Lahore, and Hammad spoke about green judicial activism, and you were very much at the forefront with Hammad, I believe, on a lot of these movements to sort of prevent a lot of development projects that were considered to be poor in terms of the environment, poor in terms of urban planning, etc. So my question is that so in essence, you were one of the pioneers who even started talking about smog being an issue in Lahore. So my question to you is that, we had projects like the Orange Line, we had projects like the Signal Free Corridor, etc., etc. Back then, did you already foresee that these were going to be bad for the environment of Lahore? And I remember the Orange Line at the peak of its construction, the dust from it was causing a lot of smog, and that was the first year when Lahore had topped the index in terms of poor air quality. But I think that you and your colleagues were the few people talking about this. And now, do you feel vindicated? Do you feel sad? What do you feel now? I'll come back to what you project for the future, but what do you have to say looking back?
Thank you, Attiya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much, and thank you for your kind words. I think it's always been a joint effort. It's a lot of people who put in their passion and their energy into doing something which is much bigger than themselves. And I think Allah Ta'ala ki isme bahut barakat aa jati hai. So I'd like to begin with that we have always tried and found the most incredible partnerships. WWF being one right from the beginning, and of course civil society in all walks of life. I just want to say that when we talk of hidden treasures, and I will come back to answer your question after this, I think that the Punjab, the topic today, is probably on top of the list. It is, the energy is, it's like magic, it's untapped. We have not gone anywhere near exploring what the Punjab is about. And Lahore, of course, is the heartbeat. When I say Lahore, my heart starts beating very fast, and it is pure alchemy. But I'd like to stop here and say that today we sit in a very strange, like Hammad said, a contradictory state where I think we're waiting for some sort of a serendipitous moment to take us out of the siege that we are under, particularly in Lahore, extending on to, of course, Punjab and the region and the rest of Pakistan. I'd like to talk a little about the Punjab, but to answer your question about the advocacy and I think that it has been an incredible journey because the power of people, we never realized how much power people had. Because when people come forward, they come with no ulterior motives. They come with passion, they come with their hearts and souls. And when 14 years ago, Lahore Canal was going to be expanded into a 4-lane motorway, which was 8 lanes on both sides, there was going to be over 2,500 acres of green public parkland was going to be removed for the motorway, and about 30,000 trees and shrubs and green cover was going to be taken away. To answer your question, yes, we always knew. I think it is the basics of understanding how cities are made, what the environment does to them, mobility, the integrated comprehensive planning is a very simple professional exercise for us. But I think that was a call by the people, for the people, and the results were mind-boggling. We were able to generate hundreds and thousands of citizens, ordinary citizens from all walks of life. A small motor notice was taken by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. There was a case took place where all the facts and figures were, and for the first time, the Landstone, WWF was a partner in that case, and there was a milestone judgment for the first time in Asia declaring the canal and its green belts an urban heritage park and a public trust. Now the word public trust is very important, because when we talk of cities, Punjab, regions, tourism, sustainability, we have to understand that these are all public trusts. A lot of these areas are, and these are secured and protected by the law. So there was legislation by the Punjab Assembly, and a Canal Heritage Park Act was declared. There have been many other things that we have had public interest litigations about. Air pollution in the smog, which was about 2 years ago. We filed for the Ravi, cleaning the Ravi water with WWF. A commission was made. I think the entire legislature, the judiciary and the executive came together for the first time with the people and started to understand that there has to be accountability, there has to be rule of law. You have to, and what is it for? At the end of the day, it's not about policies and reports and books and talk. It is for the common man. You know, in Lahore, 70 to 80% do not have clean drinking water, and there is arsenic in the water, particularly in the whole city. The air, of course, we are choking to death. There are how many deaths do we have annually? I think there are
in the labs, I think.
About 400,000 people die of air pollution. So we are sitting at a tipping point. I'm very positive that together we have done a lot and we are continuing to do a lot, and we can take care of this and bring back the magic that we had and that we need to have. I would like to talk about the Punjab.
I'm going to come to that. We're going to focus more on the positives in the second half of the session. Let's get the negative stuff over it. So I will be devil's advocate here, Faisal, and I'm going to try and come from your perspective as the president of an organization like Daewoo, where you want to see development, you want to see infrastructure, you want roads to be widened. I'm just guessing. You want projects like the Orange Line and signal-free corridors, etc., etc. And most of all, I think that the fact that Pakistan is anticipating so many tourists this year, inshallah, in the years to come, considering that you have a massive network across the country, and especially in the Punjab, where you transport, thousands of people every day. What would you say in response to this? And do you think that it is important to put aside the environment while we're trying to develop and think about those things when we stabilize a bit?
Well, thank you for that question. In our opinion, economic development and preserving the environment are not two mutually exclusive areas. And I think that's sort of where the fallacy in that argument sort of comes through when we address the needs of the common man, because urban mobility and transportation is also a very fundamental need that the common man, if you will, the poor person of this city needs to get to his place of employment and therefore have access to provide for him and his family. So it's there's no reason for environment of this city to be at odds with economic development. If you look back 5 to 6 years ago, all of these major Chinese cities, for example, were at the top of the smog list, if you will, back in 2012, 2013. But one of the things that they did through their, to address this issue through policy was the introduction of green technologies in the transportation area. So, for example, by 2025, all Chinese cities will only run electric buses. So, so they're catering to the urban transport need while ensuring that their carbon footprint is reduced. So there are ways in which even developing countries, although I think China at this stage should be described as a developed country now, are addressing this issue, have addressed this issue, and I think there are policy initiatives that can be put in place to address the small concerns. Especially, we've had a new electric mobility bill that has just passed. I think encouragement of that, and I think there are ways in which the carbon footprint can be reduced while ensuring that people have access to transportation to get to their work. So I don't think that needs to be exclusive.
Okay, so I think I completely agree with you, and I'm sure that the other panelists agree with that idea as well. And we'll come back to what perhaps some of those policy measures can be. But Hammad, going back to our earlier discussion on ecotourism. Now, just yesterday I was reading that the KP government has announced a massive tourism development list of measures that they're going to take and to promote tourism. And frankly, that list made my heart sink, because the list was full of amusement parks, the list was full of malls and development that can potentially make Murrays out of the rest of our beautiful northern areas. And I was just thinking, is it so difficult to understand that all you want to do when you go into nature is to be with nature? You don't want the same things that you have in the city. So what will WWF, how they respond to that, and do you have any links to the KP government, and how successful has your advice on this been?
Okay, so last year the federal government constituted a task force. One of the objectives was to have good ecotourism, like sustainable tourism policies in place. Now we need to understand that after 18th Amendment, tourism is also a provincial subject. I mean, 18th Amendment has created a lot of complications and controversies, and rights, responsibilities, who's responsible for what. I think that's still where the departments are struggling. And then Punjab also came up with their own tourism policy. Now, as I said earlier, that the understanding of ecotourism, I think if you look at the key features, the most important feature of any ecosystem. So you want to explore the ecosystem, but it's critically important that the integrity of that ecosystem remains, stay intact. The second thing is the local cultures. You have to respect that. The social equitability, the services of that particular ecosystem is providing. I think we need to understand that. And you don't need a science-based environmental organization like WWF to see the impacts of poor tourism policies. I mean, Murray, Naran, Kavan are prime example. Look at the mushroom growth of hotels. Look at the wastewater which is being dumped into the streams or into the river. Look at the way solid waste is being disposed of. Look at, so nothing, literally nothing blends in that particular ecosystem. The second most important point, all my life I've worked with the local communities. The ownership, involvement of local communities in any ecotourism, and that's also required capacity building, because you need to involve them. Capacity building of literally, because these are the people who are the owners, who work in those restaurants, hotels, along with the owners, and also capacity building of the regulatory agency, whether it's the TDCP or the local government, because they are the people who have clearly defined do's and don'ts. and then ensure that those policies are, whether they are the building bylaws, whether they are, the no-go areas because it's a habitat of a critical species. So once you define that, I think, so the policies, there are still gaps, but when KP government came up with, we literally challenged them. We said, this is not at all acceptable. The GTA, we are negotiating with GTA, we are really doing a lot of lobbying and advocacy. Because they wanted to have 2 amusement parks near Nathiya because Nathiya is overburdened, and we want to have like another Nathiya near Dunga Gali, and that kind of stuff. So again, I think the capacity building issue, the role of local community, and ensuring the key aspects and key elements of ecotourism, which involve local community, which ensures that the ecosystem integrity is in place, which ensures that the development is responsible, which ensures that all the consumption and the management practices, whether it's the local water resources or the waste management. And I think the private, I forgot one point, which is the involvement of private sector. The government, the civil society, they've got their limited capacity. I think government can drive such policies, but at the end of the day, the leadership has to be provided by the private sector. Whether they're the hotel and restaurant owners, whether they're the tour operators, the hospitality industry, they have to provide the leadership. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are excellent examples both in the developing country. Let's forget the developed world. Let's forget Switzerland. Let's look at Bhutan, Nepal, or even Thailand and Malaysia. They are making a lot of money through tourism. Obviously they do a lot of marketing, and our marketing budgets are really negligible. You look at the TDCP or the PGDC marketing budgets and all that stuff. But the most important thing is that the private sector has agreed and has provided, the leadership when such policies were driven by informed, committed, passionate government. I think that's what is required in this country.
Okay, thank you, Hammad. It seems that God was also listening to what you were saying, because the gentleman who can answer all your concerns is right and sat right next to you. I'd like to introduce the audience to Dr. Sohail Zafar Chima, who is the chairman of the Tourism Development Corporation of Punjab. He's also been a former Minister for Commerce and Investment and an advisor to the Chief Minister of Punjab. Welcome, Dr. Chima. So, just to catch you up on what Hammad was saying, and I'm sure all of us would be very interested to hear your response, that we haven't always seen responsible, well thought out tourism development in Pakistan. And it's neglected the ecosystems in place, as Hammad said, it's neglected local community, and it's overburdened the ecosystems that have been in place wherever they've gone in. And we have examples, as he said, of Naran, Kaman, Mari, etc. that are garbage dumps now and far too populated. So how is the Punjab planning to correct this bad direction in development, if I'm allowed to use the term?
Thank you very much. सबसे पहले तो मैं मोस्टली पाकिस्तानी तो मेरा आई कैन स्पीक, लेकिन मैं प्रेफर करता हूँ कि मैं प्रेफर करता हूँ अपनी लैंग्वेज में, क्योंकि मैंने अक्सर खासतौर पे चाइनीज के बारे में कि वो उनको बहुत अच्छी इंग्लिश आती होती है, लेकिन दे ऑलवेज प्रेफर अपनी लैंग्वेज। और मेरा है कि आप ज़्यादा यू कैन स्पीक फ्रॉम योर हार्ट, तो इस वजह से मादत अगर किसी को लगे तो अच्छा। इनफैक्ट इससे पहले जब हम टूरिज्म की बात करते हैं तो पंजाब जो है वो उसमें कभी भी कोई फोकस एरिया नहीं रहा है। और मतलब जिस तरह फॉर एग्जाम्पल TDC की पहले बात जैसे हो रही थी, तो TDC भी 88 में बना, लेकिन उस वक्त से लेकर उसने हमेशा डिक्लाइन किया। शुरू में रिजॉर्ट्स वगैरह भी बने, लेकिन कोई प्रॉपर रेगुलेशंस नहीं थी। जिस तरह हम अगर मनी की बात करें तो वो एक बिल्कुल मशरूम ग्रोथ और
انفراسٹرکچر اس طرح کا بنا کہ وہ اٹس ناٹ لائک ایکو فرینڈلی. اب جب خاص طور پہ جب سے میں نے جوائن کیا اباؤٹ 5 months بیک، تو ہم لوگ جو ہے اب جتنی بھی ہماری ڈیسٹینیشن ہیں ان کو ہم بڑا فوکس کر رہے ہیں، کیونکہ اس سے پہلے میں نے جتنی بھی جگہیں دیکھی، جس طرح ہم کلر کہار کی بات کرتے ہیں تو کلر کہار جو ہے وہ اس میں بھی اسی طرح سے مشروم گروتھ ہونا شروع ہو گئی جس طرح ہماری ہے. کوئی بھی جو ڈیسٹینیشن پاپولر ہونا شروع ہوتی ہے وہاں پہ پرائیویٹ سیکٹر کے لوگ آتے ہیں اور وہ پھر بالکل اس کا دھیان نہیں رکھتے ہیں اس میں. جس طرح فار ایگزامپل میں جتنی بھی لیکس ہیں اس کے اندر جو ہے وہ میں نے ایون دیکھا بڑے فارفلنگ ایریاز جس طرح فورٹ منرو میں بھی جتنے بھی ہوٹلز ہیں وہ سارے کے سارے اپنی سیوریج اور سارا جو اس میں ہماری لیکس میں ہیں. تو اس کے اوپر جو ہے وہ اب ہم فار ایگزامپل ابھی ہم مری کے بالکل ساتھ میں کوٹلی سرنیاں ہیں، تو کوٹلی سرنیاں جو ہے اس کو میرے آنے سے پہلے اس کے اوپر تھوڑی سی پلاننگ ہو گئی تھی، لیکن میں نے کہا کہ نہیں، ہم اگر اس کو پلان کریں گے تو اٹ شوڈ بی جو ہے ایکو فرینڈلی. کمیونٹی جو ہے اس کی انوالومنٹ بہت ضروری ہوتی ہے، کیونکہ جب کوئی وہ ایریا ڈیولپ ہونے لگتا ہے تو وہاں کے لوگ جو ہوتے ہیں وہ ڈسلوکیٹ ہم کرنا شروع کر دیتے ہیں، یا پھر وہ ایک چھوٹی جاب جو ہے اس کے اوپر آ جاتے ہیں. پھر لوگوں کا انٹرسٹ نہیں رہتا، جو کمرشل ہوتا ہے وہ کمرشل ہوتا ہے. جو لوکل ہوتے ہیں اگر آپ ان کو انوالو کرتے ہیں تو وہ پھر اوور آل ایریا کی اپلفٹنگ ہوتی ہے. تو ہم جتنی بھی اب نئی ڈیسٹینیشنز کو جو ہم ڈیولپ کرنے جا رہے ہیں اس میں ہم اس کے اوپر بہت ہمارا فوکس ہے، اور ہم جو ہے وہ اس میں جو ایک ہم نیا ایک کانسیپٹ لے کے آ رہے ہیں جو ٹورزم زونز کا، جس میں ہم پراپر ریگولیشنز کے ساتھ یہ چیزیں کریں گے اور دیکھیں گے کہ وہ اس انوائرمنٹ کے مطابق اور اس کی ایون جو تھیم ہے وہ بھی اٹ شوڈ بی وہ جو اس ایریا کے مطابق لگے. ہم یہ نہیں ہے کہ عجیب و غریب قسم کے اسٹرکچرز کریٹ کر دیں، ہائی رائزز بنا دیں. تو یہ ساری چیزیں جو ہیں گورنمنٹ کا ڈیفینیٹ فوکس ہے.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tiwana. That was very valuable insight. So, Auntie Imran, you have a bird's eye perspective of, let's say, the last decade or 15 years on a kind of progression that we've been seeing. And what would you say in advice, given your background in planning and development, from an eco-tourism point of view, specifically for the Punjab, what would your ideal case scenario or vision for this province be in terms of eco?
Thank you, Attiya. I totally agree with what you have said. I think economics must go hand in hand with development. It's actually the interpretation of the word development that we need to reconsider. Development kya cheez hai, kiske liye hai, kyun ho rahi hai? Iske upar Attiya, I think that the Punjab, the diversity of what we have in the Punjab is unknown to so many people. I would like to suggest, I think we're talking essentially about sustainable tourism, which involves the natural and built environment and also the culture and heritage of that natural and built environment. We of course also talk about tangible and intangible. And intangible heritage, the intangible heritage of Punjab is fascinating. The music, the dhols, the puppetry, itna kuch hai jo vanishing city syndrome mein ghaib hota chala ja raha hai. I'd just like to quickly go over this hidden treasure of all the Punjab, DG Khan se shuru karke Fort Monroe, Rohtas, the Rawal Fort, Atak Jaye, the religious diversity of Nankana Sahib, Kartarpur, Katas Raj, Sharif, the Hindu Shaya temples which are absolutely fabulous, the place where Buddhism originated, Taxila. Then we have Harappa, we have the Salt Range, we have Kallar, we have the Mughals, we have the British, and then of course the ecological side of it, the biodiversity. Soon Valley और सकेसर, हमें ये नहीं मालूम कि सकेसर is 5,500 feet, the same height as Murray, and completely unexplored. There are 3 lakes between Kalir Kahar and Sakesar, which are Puchhani, where the flamingos are, जो नीचे वीडियो भी चल रहा है, Khabeki and Jhalar Lake. One of them is a salt lake. If you go here, these are sanctuaries. आप चिड़ियोट देखें, भेड़ा देखें, कुछ शरीफ चले जाएं. ये जो खबेकी लेक है, यहाँ पे एक मछली होती है, it's called शहजादी गुलफाम. And I have never in my life eaten fish like शहजादी गुलफाम. So there is a treasure, so many treasures here. So of course then we have the shrines and the folklore, the music, literature, poetry from Sultan Bahu to Baba Farid to Bulle Shah to Cholistan in Bahawalpur. ये जो 3 lakes इसका जिक्र हुआ, ये 1996 में they were declared a Ramsar wildlife sanctuary site. 700,000 birds migrate to Pakistan. उनमें से साइबेरियन क्रेन, आपको बेहतर पता होगा, is extinct now, जो 2002 तक आया करती थी to these lakes. And before I will give a few suggestions that I have on ecotourism, but before that I would like all of us to give a hand to Asma Chishti and because she's a wonder woman. I mean, is the first person who has truly opened this box of magic. And Asma, the alchemy that we are all going to create together, that you have initiated, is going to be magical. I think there is no other country like Pakistan. It is definitely the most beautiful, the most vibrant, the most incredible country in the world. मैंने दुनिया में और ऐसा मुल्क नहीं देखा. और destinations ने, through their work, which you see here today, the exhibition, the videos, the magic, they have opened this to the people of Pakistan and to the world. आपको बहुत मुबारक हो, and inshallah we all look forward to working with you to creating something absolutely wonderful here. So I just thank you so much for doing this, Asma, and for opening this up. So there are 2 words. One is awareness, and the other is communication, and the third, of course, is action. Right? So we need to do something solid. Asma has already started. Daewoo is now taking you to destinations that we never heard of. जहाँ हम जा ही नहीं सकते थे. तो यहाँ कैसे जाएंगे? रहने की जगह नहीं है. गाड़ी कैसे जाएगी? Daewoo has looked after that and done a brilliant job. We wish you all the best in that. जो पोटोहार है, जो देखिए 4 ecologies हैं. You know, the winter season when you can go to these. This is also unexplored. But let's come to the plan. Okay, let's make a plan. So what do we do? And I'd just like to talk about 4 things. The first is the alteration in habitat, biodiversity. जैसे जैसे development बगैर sustainability के आती है, it creates alterations in habitat which change the ecology, which change the nature of the entire ecosystem, not only of Pakistan but of the world. And we start losing precious flora, fauna, indigenous craft. The second is communities, जो Hammad ने भी सबने बात की. The authenticity and integrity of communities, because that is the real, क्या कहना चाहिए, the anchor to the culture and the heritage of any country, of any region. तीसरी is the tangible and intangible heritage that I spoke about, and we need to protect and preserve them. So one of the thoughts was, बहुत से canal rest houses बने हुए हैं हर जगह. Maybe if someone can take them over, या PTDC ले ले, उनको demolish होने से बचा ले, और वहाँ पे छोटे, hotels that are accessible to people, they can be re-established. Laws need to be made to protect all these places. Boundaries need to be made. I think a data map is extremely essential, where we can identify biological zones, the hot spots. WWF can be very helpful in that. The intangible, intangible heritage. We can coordinate with the archaeology department. There's now climate change policy and environment. बहुत कुछ हो रहा है. But I believe that they should all come together as a hub of sustainable ecology and tourism and heritage. So the nature of tourism has to be re-understood. It's a very fragile product, I would say, that needs protection and needs to be looked at from a different perspective. The business model has to be enhanced. There has to be a business model, but the model now has to be a caring model. It has to be a healing model. हमारी दुनिया is, we've seen Australia में क्या हो रहा है, पाकिस्तान में क्या हो रहा है, सांस ही आ रहा है. It has to be a very nurturing and healing and caring model, जो कि PTDCP मेरा ख्याल है इसमें अगर सब शामिल हो जाए. It also needs a lot of innovation and expertise on sustainability. So I would say a collaborative approach would help. And leadership in energy conservation and environmental design. What we need to do basically is to reduce the carbon emissions. तो आपने भी कहा resource utilization को देखना है, पानी को क्या करना है, कहाँ बचाना है, water, soil and air pollution को देखना है, privacy and protection of indigenous communities. So we need to redefine tourism from a community point of view and from an ecological point of view. I just like to give you one example, which is incredible. सारी दुनिया में this change is coming about. But there is a hotel in America which has 18,000 plants on its rooftop, and these plants are used as insulation. They save 35,000 gallons of rainwater for that hotel, which is a huge amount. They also have, instead of having cars to go to your destinations, उन्होंने साइकिलें रखी हुई है, cycle racks, and they have valets. Valet आपकी साइकिल लेके आएगा, इसको जाएगी valet आपकी कार लेके आएगा. So it's very interesting that the whole focus is now turning or needs to turn to authenticity, to green and friendly environments, and the policies that define these need to be put together in a comprehensive way. जिसमें अब ecology भी आए, heritage भी आए, mandatory green measures लाने की बहुत ज़रूरत है. buildings में, हमारी destinations में, plastic की cups, छोटी-छोटी चीज़ें, you go somewhere and they're still serving you in plastic cups and giving you plastic spoons. I think support and training is very important. जैसे हमाद ने कहा कि बहुत सारे मुल्क closer to us, Maldives और नेपाल और जितने ये शहर हैं, there is a lot to learn from them. हमें फिर से बैठ के इजाद करने की ज़रूरत नहीं. So support and training is essential. Once we have capacity building and we have that training in place, I think that it becomes very easy to begin to implement this successfully. Otherwise, पूरा पाकिस्तान एक roller coaster और theme park बन जाएगा. और जो हमारा heritage, मैं समझती हूँ जो पाकिस्तान में natural built heritage है, दुनिया में मैंने इकट्ठा एक जगह पे नहीं देखा. So let's focus on the collaborative partnerships, which are both public and private. And here, because we have TPCP, WWF, and Daewoo, and of course, destinations is the star. As far as I'm concerned, destinations is the star that is absolutely put all this together. So I would say, let's make a hub. Let's make a hub where we have all of us together, and let's sit and chart out a 5-point policy regarding the boundaries, the definitions, the do's and the don'ts that we need to incorporate. जैसे हमारे ने कहा, ये नथिया गली में, ठंडियानी में एक सड़क बन रही थी, from ठंडियानी to नथिया गली, which would have ruined. It's not कि हम नहीं चाहते कि सड़कें बने, of course हम चाहते हैं, but there is a way to do this, and those ways are very easy to do. It is the mindset and the paradigm that needs to change. So I would recommend
I think we're running into the next session, so I want to quickly wrap up with a question each for Faisal and Dr. Chima. So Faisal, very quickly, you've heard the panelists, and we know that we're anticipating a lot of tourists in Pakistan in the coming years. How is Daewoo preparing for it, considering that you transport, like Auntie Imran said, masses to these places which perhaps none of us have ventured out to in the past? And secondly, what are the measures that Daewoo is planning in the coming years to move to greener technologies, as many businesses are doing these?
Yeah, as far as just answering your second question first, as far as green technologies are concerned, a lot of businesses respond to incentives, and quite frankly, corporations are set up primarily as a profit motive and stuff. So as we shift towards green technologies, the first attempt that we're trying to make is to ensure that the various departments within the government help set up those incentives or encourage those incentives. So whether it is the introduction of electric buses in the cities, encouraging a lower footprint perhaps in terms of moving away from diesel to power buses to perhaps LNG or CNG perhaps that have slightly lower carbon footprint, and then ultimately to the electric technology, which I think is the future of the world, and I think that's where the world is headed. And obviously that is headed because countries like China and others, and then because the Paris Accords and other countries, although there are certain countries like the United States that unfortunately is not showing this leadership right now, but a lot of the other countries are, and then they're shifting the paradigm. They're creating incentives for private companies to innovate and take us to that place. So I think we're playing our part in that, however little and slowly we can in that. So over time you will see, inshallah, a lower carbon footprint coming from the transport business. And that's something that we're trying to encourage, even with electric mobility with respect to two-wheelers and three-wheelers that run in the cities. Inshallah, in a few years, we will see the internal combustion engine going away and electric two-wheelers and three-wheelers, which should affect the smog issues that we face in Lahore quite dramatically and drastically. So we are playing our part in advocacy and of course creating the incentive structure so that for-profit organizations like ourselves can head in that direction. And then as far as the transportation to our tourism sites are concerned, I think we're already seeing a mass of people heading towards a lot of these sites. So we've added routes that take us up to Naran, trying to go further north. We go up to Sawat, we're trying to go up to Kalam. Of course, there's some infrastructure that needs to get built out over there. That will help us, but quite frankly, the response that we're seeing internally within Pakistan of people, living in urban centers, perhaps in Karachi and Lahore and other places, heading up to these localities is incredible. And I think that one of the things that gets lost in the tourism debate is that. There is a massive interest in tourism locally that's developing because the middle class of this country unfortunately is unable to they're not traveling to Switzerland or Dubai or even Thailand for that matter to get there to tour around and stuff, and they are going to these areas. Unfortunately, what's happening is that a lot of these places, both from a transport perspective, because you've got inadequate transportation provided by vans and others. So companies like ourselves are unable to fulfill that demand. But also the cities and towns that these tourists visit are unable to handle the effluent that is created, the garbage, just that ecosystem is not quite there. Whether we're talking about Naran, which becomes a bit of a garbage dump after the summer season, or when you travel farther outside of Mingora, you go to places like Bahrain and Kalam, and you see trash on the sides. So it's not just transport, and we're trying to increase our investment in encouraging more people to visit these places. But I think a lot of other private sector enterprises also need to do their part with government regulation, because the easiest thing the private sector to do is to pollute. I think that some of the stricter government measures will help in that respect.
Thank you, Faisal. I think that's very welcome news, and I hope that the rest of the private sector takes Daewoo as an example and follows suit in responsible development, responsible business. So Dr. Chima, we conclude with you. हमने सेशन शुरू होने के बाद बोला था कि पाकिस्तान इस वक्त काफी ज़्यादा travel blogs, magazines, website में #1 tourist destination of 2020 declare हुआ है. तो आप as a chairman of the TDCP कितने excited हैं about this news, and आपकी planning इस हवाले से क्या है, और हमें as citizens of Pakistan and Lahore, who are traditionally known to be some of the most hospitable people in the world, what can we expect?
बल्कि मेरे लिए तो मैं उस तरह से कहूँगा कि सारी बातें होने बड़े वाला सीन है कि फौरनी जो है वो चीज़ें हम अभी अपने आप को प्रिपेयर कर रहे थे फॉर दैट, क्योंकि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट एक लंबा टास्क है, खास तौर पे जिस तरह हमारे यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम होती है. इससे भी ज़्यादा देखिए, अभी जो लोगों ने देखा है वो शायद इस मेरी 30% of that, मैं पंजाब की स्पेशली बात कर रहा हूँ, we are totally unexplored. अभी मैं जिस तहसील में हम जाते हैं पता ये चलता है कि वहाँ पे वो ऐसी चीज़ें हैं, ऐसी हमारी कल्चरल हेरिटेज जो है, वहाँ की आर्कियोलॉजिकल साइट्स हैं, वहाँ के जो रूट्स हैं, each and everything is unexplored. आम लोगों को नहीं पता होता. आम मोस्टली होता है ये कि अगर मैं जाता हूँ, पहले एज ए मिनिस्टर भी जब जाता था, अभी भी जब जाता हूँ, तो हमारे पास जो सोर्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन होती है वो होता है असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर से. अगर असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर को 2 साल उसने लगाए होते हैं तो उसको थोड़ा बहुत पता होता है, लेकिन उसको भी कम्प्लीटली नहीं पता होता. अभी वी आर नॉट डाउन. इसके ऊपर भी TDCP काम कर रही है. अभी हमारा एक नया प्रोजेक्ट आ रहा है जिसमें हम लोग जो है वो तहसील लेवल से उसमें हम वॉलंटियर जो है उनको भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं, हम गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर के लोगों को भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं. हम कमिटीज बना रहे हैं डिफरेंट, जो कि इन चीज़ों को डॉक्यूमेंट करने के बाद उनको मैं थोड़ा सा डिट्राइव करूँ, क्योंकि मुझे डर है कि कुछ चीज़ें जो है मुझे बतानी चाहिए. उसमें ये होता है कि आर्कियोलॉजिकल साइट्स हमारी, मैं आपको एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ कि मुझे पता चला कि गुजरांवाला में रंजीत सिंह का समर हाउस था. वो समर हाउस जो है उसको उसकी खिड़कियाँ और दरवाजे किसी नादर ने निकाल के तो अपने घर में लगा दिए और उसको उसी तरह ट्रीटमेंट छोड़ दिया. इस तरह की बहुत सारी कई जगह पे क्या होता है कि आपकी बहुत ही ज़बरदस्त किस्म की आर्कियोलॉजिकल साइट है जिसका इतना पता नहीं लगता, आर्कियोलॉजी के पास इतने बंदे नहीं होते, वो खजाने की तलाश में उसको खोदना शुरू कर देते हैं. इसी तरह की बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं और बहुत सारी ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं जिनको मैं उनको अब अपॉर्चुनिटी के तौर पे ले रहा हूँ. तो हम बहुत सारी चीज़ों को डॉक्यूमेंट करने जा रहे हैं, तहसील लेवल पे, उधर का जो कल्चर है, इवन हर जगह की कुछ ना कुछ यूनिक चीज़ें हैं. इसके अलावा जो है अगर मैं बात करूँ TDCP, हम बहुत सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स लेके आ रहे हैं, बहुत सारी ऑलमोस्ट तकरीबन मैंने خود جو میں نے آل ان کام کیا ہے وہ 350 پیجز کی تقریباً ایک بک ہے جو میں نے اس میں 35 کے قریب کانسیپٹ پیپرز ہیں جو میں نے آنے کے بعد وہ ہے جو ٹوٹل یونیک ہے جس میں ابھی جو ہے وہ میرے ڈپارٹمنٹ کے کچھ لوگوں کو صرف پتہ ہے وہ ہم انشاءاللہ کچھ دنوں میں ہم ان کو ڈیولپ کرنے جا رہے ہیں. ڈیفینیٹ جو ہے یہ آنے والا جو ٹائم ہے وہ بہت اچھا ہے پاکستان کے لیے. میں ایز اے ٹی ڈی اسپیچر ہمارے اس سے پہلے یہ ہوتا تھا کہ ہم کمپیٹیٹر بن جاتے تھے. جس طرح فار ایگزامپل ڈائیو سے پہلے آپ نے دیکھا ہوگا کہ ٹی ٹی سی پی کی بسز ہوتی تھیں تو ابھی بھی کانسیپٹ ابھی آیا شروع میں کہ جی ہم اپنی بسز نہیں شروع کریں تو میں نے کمایا اس کا کیا فائدہ. تو اس کے بعد میں نے چیز کے ساتھ رابطہ کیا اور ہم نے ڈائیو کے ساتھ ایم کر لیا. اسی طرح سے پرائیویٹ سیکٹر جو ہے دیکھیں ہم اگر گورنمنٹ سیکٹر ڈیولپمنٹ کرنے جائے گا ہم ریزورٹس بنانے جائیں گے تو یا کچھ بھی ہم چیزیں کرنے جائیں گے تو ول ٹیک ٹائم. ہمارے گورنمنٹ کا جو ریڈ ٹیپزم اور دوسری چیزیں ہوتی ہیں تو میں بلیو کرتا ہوں کہ ہم پرائیویٹ سیکٹر کے ساتھ پارٹنرشپس کریں ان کو اسٹرینتھن کریں اور وہ خود ہی کیونکہ ان کا بزنس ہے تو وہ اس بزنس کے چکر میں بہت کچھ ہو جائے گا. میں آپ کو ایک ایگزامپل دیتا ہوں کہ ورلڈ بینک ایک جو ہے وہ اسٹڈی ہے جو میں نے پڑھی اس میں ہم کیونکہ ڈائیو کے ساتھ مل کے اس کے اوپر بھی کام کرنا چاہ رہے ہیں جو ہے ہمارا یہ جو بدھزم تو اس میں ہمارے پاس میرا خیال ہے کہ اگر ایک طرف پوری دنیا کو کر لیں اور ایک طرف سے پاکستان کر لیں تو وی ہیو مور دین 60% ان کے یا شاید اس سے بھی زیادہ جو ان کے رمینز ہیں. اور لیکن انفارچونیٹلی میرا خیال ہے جو اس میں جو ورلڈ بینک کی جو رپورٹ ہے اس کے مطابق 65 to 70% لوگوں کو نہیں پتا کہ ان کا کچھ یہاں پہ ریمینز ہیں یا یہاں پہ ان کے لیے کچھ ہے ریلیجیس پلیسز ہیں دنیا کے بدھسٹ ہیں ان کو. اور انفارچونیٹلی 60% مانکس کو بھی نہیں پتا. مطلب ہم لوگوں نے ابھی تک اپنے آپ کو مارکیٹ ہی نہیں کر سکے. اگر ہم سیکولرزم کی بات کریں تو دنیا میں تقریباً 14 کروڑ کے قریب سکھ ہیں اور ابھی تک مطلب میرا خیال ہے ان میں سے شاید ہی کوئی 1% جو ہے انہوں نے ٹریول کیا ہوگا اور ان کی ٹوٹل ریمینز جو ہیں ٹوٹل ریلیجیس سائٹس جو ہیں اور ایون ان کی صرف ریلیجیس سائٹس نہیں ہیں. آپ اگر ان کا پرائڈ ہے وہ ایک ہے. ان کی حکومت جب سے دنیا بنی ہے جب سے سکھ ریلیجن آیا ہے اس وقت سے لے کر آج تک ایک ان کی ڈائنیسٹی رہی وہ تھا رنجیت سنگھ. ان کا جو پرائڈ ہے وہ بھی ہے اور وہ بھی پیٹاوڑا سے شروع ہو کر نواب میں ختم ہو گیا. تو ان کے پاس آنے کی یہاں بہت ریزن ہے لیکن انفارچونیٹلی ڈیو ٹو ہماری جو یہاں کی جو بھی سچویشن تھی اور پولیٹیکل ول نہیں تھی جو کہ اب نظر آ رہی ہے. جب وہ پولیٹیکل ول نظر آ رہی ہے اسی وجہ سے لوگ اب یہ تو ابھی آپ کو ڈفرینٹ ویلاگرز ان کی اور ڈفرینٹ میگزینز میں جو چیزیں آ رہی ہیں اس کے پیچھے گورنمنٹ کی یہ نہیں ہے کہ آؤٹ آف بلو کہیں ہو رہا ہے اس طرح نہیں ہے. اس کی ریزن یہ ہے بہت سارے ویلاگرز کو بہت سارے لوگوں کو گورنمنٹ جو ہے وہ ٹریول کرا رہی ہے اور وہ جب واپس جاتے ہیں ان کو جو ہے وہ اس کے بعد وہ لکھتے ہیں اور پھر الٹیمیٹلی وہ چیزیں جو ہے وہ اس طرف سے بڑی تیزی سے ہو رہی ہیں. تو انشاءاللہ جو ہے میں تو بڑا ایکسائٹڈ ہوں. میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ آنے والا ٹائم ٹورزم کے پوائنٹ آف ویو سے بہت اچھا ہے اور آئی ہوپ کہ انشاءاللہ جو ہے وہ ایک اور اس کی وجہ سے پھر بزنس تو فلرش ہوگا پاکستان جو ہے الٹیمیٹلی بہت آگے.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say that if the audience has any questions, please, Mohsen, go ahead.
Thank you. जी वैसे तो मेरी आवाज़ काफ़ी बड़ी है. Thank you so much. Just one short question to Tima sahab and one observation. Tourism की बात की आपने. दुनिया भर में tourism होता है. In fact, मुस्लिम ममालिक में भी tourism है बहुत ज़्यादा. शराब भी बहुत ज़्यादा important चीज़ होती है. टूरिस्ट आते हैं शराब के लिए और यहाँ पाकिस्तान में क्रिकेट टीम से आती हैं बहुत टूरिस्ट आते हैं. लेकिन ड्राई कंट्री है because they want a night life. हमारे यहाँ नाइट लाइफ है. उसके बारे में आप लोगों का क्या पॉलिसी है? टूरिज्म आप पंजाब की बात शराब खाने में
Mohsen, I think that question is beyond if I
no, but cheese tourism Punjab and East
Absolutely, but I think that is a legal and policy matter that is being.
I am coming to that. No, I'm coming to that. जी.
देखिए, even though I never drink in my life, लेकिन मैं ये समझता हूँ कि जो टूरिस्ट आते हैं उनको हमें उनको टीच नहीं करना। If we are talking about tourism, तो tourism में आपने लोगों को जो उसकी बिल है और उसके मुताबिक उसको बिल्कुल और खास तौर पे जो मुस्लिम्स नहीं है उनके लिए तो आपको पता है कि डिफरेंट होटल्स वगैरह में जो लाइसेंस मौजूद है और वो उनके लिए अवेलेबिलिटी है और मैं समझता हूँ कि देखिए हमें थोड़ा
open availability, they can't walk into a bar और आप बीच की बात करें PI का हम सफर का पढ़िए उसमें ऑफिशियल हिदायत जो है ख़वातीन के कपड़ों के लिए है कहते सेट ढांक के रखिए सलवार कमीज पहने मुस्लिमों में आप पूरा कवर्ड स्कर्ट ना पहने ड्रेसेस ना पहने I just want
मैं आपको बताऊँ देखिए दुनिया में जहाँ पे भी आप जाते हैं तो उनका थोड़ा सा कल्चर को और ये ब्यूटी भी है मैं समझता हूँ उसको कि आपका जो कल्चर है उसके मुताबिक लोग कर रहे होते हैं तो एक ब्यूटी भी होती है वो आप और उसी की वजह से शायद बहुत सारी चीजें जो है वो आपके एक बड़ा अच्छा मैसेज जा रहा होगा। दूसरा जहाँ तक बात है
स्कर्ट्स पहने जाते हैं
नहीं तो जो स्कर्ट पहनने जाते हैं जितने पहनने जाते हैं वो तो उसमें मैं आपको बताऊँ अगर हम फीमेल्स के हिसाब से बात करें तो मुझे मतलब दुनिया से बहुत सारे ब्लॉगर्स खवातीन आई और पाकिस्तान से बहुत सारे बाइकर हैं जो पूरा बलूचिस्तान तक उन्होंने ट्रैवल किया हुआ है। We are very safe country for females. यहाँ पे कोई इशू नहीं।
Don't send out that message. Don't tell me I've traveled in Pakistan. I've traveled in Pakistan with tourists.
Like I said, I think this is an endless dialogue and it's...
One observation. I was waiting if somebody will point out and say, Imran की जो tenacity है और उसमें इनकी courage है उसको salute, naivety भी है उसको भी salute. But nobody pointed out the main reason for the environmental degradation and it's greed, corporate greed, and all other kinds of greeds and lack of vision and will because bureaucracy doesn't have vision at all. Government is not interested. When Mr. Imran said that tourism is good for the country, but he's not good for the country. So we
these are personal.
Not personal. It's greed.
At the end of the day, we're sitting in his government. People voted him to. There's a lady in the third row who has a question. If you post it in the beginning, mic the back, and then we have questions.
I'm Maliha, and I have a question for you. Like we are very lucky to have so many undiscovered sites that you're saying that there are many to be explored. The ones which are explored, I would request, as you said, maybe a partnership with private sector would do it good to maintain those sites. Because I just visited 2 days ago, I visited Lahore with the team of teachers, and then there were newly built washrooms and 5 were locked, 1 was operational. Why? I could see they are newly built. There should be some monitoring going on. Or do you pay those people? I doubt it because there was no one there except one boy. So this is important. People come to see how well preserved is the site, and we don't even care about it. And what you said, Mohsin sir, when we go to the temples and when we go to a mosque in Istanbul, we respect people, like we cover and it's just a point, I'm just making a point and I like this idea.
There's no right to wrong answer, it's a matter of personal taste, I think, and of course the laws of the country, which is beyond
exactly. This is something which should address.
So I think you made a very valid point. There's a lady in the front row who has a question. I'll take one last question from the lady in the last row, and then I think we have to clear this room.
Hello everybody. So basically it's from Dr. Mr. Shima. As a part of youth, I've seen that government is doing a lot in promoting tourism in Pakistan, right? We have seen bloggers coming from all over the world, so the point here is that the people who are coming from abroad, they have people like they have support in Pakistan who take those people to these destinations, right? Like I was right now seeing the website of TTCP. So they have like a form where you fill that you wanna plan a tour in Pakistan, right? So the suggestion is that wouldn't it be good if you have like a platform where people can plan their tour, like they can plan their transportation, and then you can have affiliation with the restaurants across the regions. So like it would be autonomous, like when you're planning to escalate this idea of tourism, right? So this won't be possible to have just a small forum where you have to communicate with people, right? So obviously the people are coming from different regions talking different languages, so it won't be logically possible to escalate it to that level, right? So there's a high need of building a platform, like bringing technology to tourism, right? And then collaborating with transportation companies and these restaurants, right? To bring them at one platform where the customers from all over the world can download these applications and like plan their tour right from there, right? They do not have to have any affiliations here.
Thank you, that's a very good idea.
पहले कहा था कि हम प्राइवेट सेक्टर हम चाहते हैं कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर आगे आए और हम उनको स्ट्रेंथन करना हमारा बेसिक फंक्शन है, जो जिस राह पे उसमें हम हमारा जो नेक्स्ट वेबसाइट और जो ऐप हम बनाने जा रहे हैं उसमें हम प्राइवेट सेक्टर जो जिस तरह जितने भी ट्रैवल टूर ऑपरेटर्स हैं उनको जो लोग रेंट करते हैं गाड़ियाँ जिस तरह Daewoo है, हम सारे लोगों को उसमें लेके आना चाह रहे हैं और फिर उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है कि वो किसको चूज करता है, वो एक सर्विस को चूज करता है या वो एक ओवरऑल एक पैकेज करता है। हम तो बिल्कुल कम्पीट नहीं करना चाहते हैं प्राइवेट सेक्टर में, जो कि बहुत एक अभी भी हमारी वेबसाइट पे आपको नजर आ रहा होगा कि हम टूर ऑपरेट करते हैं। ये हमारा बेसिकली काम किया है गवर्नमेंट, हमारा काम है टू सपोर्ट प्राइवेट टूर ऑपरेटर्स, उनके लिए एक प्लेटफॉर्म जो है वो बनाए और उसको करें और इसके ऊपर हम वे ऑफ वर्किंग करें।
I think that's it, because this is the era of like smartphones and digital space. So ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है कि और हमने जैसे एक ऐप बनाई है जिसमें all the protected areas. So if you enter that app is on your cell phone, smartphones. If you enter a Ramsar site, कभी की एक बजाय it tells you that we are in the process of finalizing it. And this is the Ramsar site, this is the wetland, these are the migratory birds which come to this place, and these are the do's and don'ts. So I think my request to you would be to have like a lot of consultation, involve other organizations in your planning and when you finalize your strategy, because there is data available, there are expertise available, and we can really help you. और उसके अंदर बिकॉज इंस्टेड कि आप अपने ऑफिसेज अपने स्टाफ को करें, आपकी जो ऐप और आपकी जो वेबसाइट्स हैं उसमें कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन हो, कंज्यूमर्स को सब कुछ भी पता चले, एंड देन ओकेजनली मॉनिटरिंग एंड कंट्रोल्स। और इसके बाद जहाँ आप नहीं है वहाँ पे बेशक वो लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और उसको इन्वॉल्व करके, बिकॉज दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। अगर क्लियरली डिफाइंड है कि कलर कहाँ पे जाके XYZ नहीं करना और ABC सिर्फ कर सकते हैं, और अगर कोई XYZ कर रहा है जीरो टॉलरेंस, वो बर्दाश्त नहीं होना चाहिए। अदरवाइज आप एक को अलाउ करेंगे तो वहाँ पे हंटिंग भी होगी, वहाँ पे लीगल फिशिंग भी होगी, वहाँ पे लोग वेस्ट भी डंप करेंगे, लिटर भी होगा, प्लास्टिक भी नजर आएंगे, सो आपके वेस्ट रेस्टोरेंट्स मैनेज नहीं कर रहे होंगे। इट विल बिकम लाइक कोई फिर मरी, और जहाँ पे आप नक्शा करेंगे फाक होटल कैसे नीचे करके देखें तो आपको एक सामने पहाड़ नजर आता है और एक आपको टेट्रा पैक और लेस और सबका एक और पहाड़ नजर आ जाता है। So I think that's not acceptable. We have a model which we need to लर्निंग हमारी बहुत है, बट अब है कि लेट्स डू इट।
मैं इसके लिए ना ऑलरेडी हम एक एडवाइजरी बोर्ड में मैंने जो बताया कि 35 जो कॉन्सेप्ट पेपर्स उसमें एक तो हमारा बोर्ड है वो तो है ही है, लेकिन उसके अलावा हम एक एडवाइजरी बोर्ड बनाने जा रहे हैं जिसमें हम सारे एक्सपर्ट्स जो हैं जो बेसिकली जिन्होंने काम करना है, जो कम से कम 15 दिन में या 1 महीने में कम से कम एक मीटिंग करके जो हमें एडवाइस करें कि व्हाट वी कैन डू, तो उसमें डेफिनेट मैं आप लोगों के साथ जो है वो इसको डिस्कस करूंगा और डेफिनेट हम इसके ऊपर ऑलरेडी काम कर रहे हैं।
Okay, we have some more questions. I'm not sure how much time we have. Sorry, Auntie.
I just have one small thing to add here. I think we're all coming back to the same thing कि boundaries बनाए और उन boundaries को फिर compliance उनकी होनी चाहिए. But I just want to bring to your attention that Pakistan, just the air pollution economic burden on Pakistan is 50 billion rupees, and it is 6% of the GDP. तो ये जो हम इकोनॉमिक्स की भी बात कर रहे थे, आई थिंक एक दफ़ा सस्टेनेबिलिटी आ जाए तो ये बहुत ईज ऑफ हो जाएगा. ये इतना लंबा खर्चा जो है, एंड आई वुड जस्ट लाइक टू एंड बाय सेइंग दैट दिस इज एग्जैक्टली द राइट टाइम. तो इस वक्त प्राइम मिनिस्टर की विजन ही यही है, एंड आई थिंक वी शुड ऑल कम टुगेदर ऑन दिस थिंग.
There was a lady in the last row.
But if you could summarize for me the panel, what do you think are the top 3 environmental threats that are being created by tourism as it stands presently, and what is already being done and what should be done to address these threats?
I think Hammad, if you can, I think the entire panel was about that. If you allow me, or if you want to. So I think the number one threat is waste management in tourism areas. Water.
So number one is when you literally conceive a project, at the planning phase. If you do not define no-go areas, and if you allow development, whether it's like a new hotel, a couple of restaurants, amusement park, whatever. So the number one, I think, issue is that you have to declare as part, as Chima Saab mentioned, that there are tourist zones. So you have to declare those zones, that the things which can be done in those zones and things which can never, be done in those zones. So that's like the planning. Once you do, and once the hotels and the restaurant, then comes the way you're using the natural resources and the way you're managing the waste. That's not sustainable. And we have examples of Naran, Kalan, Maria gave you so many examples, Gilgit, where the proper system are not placed in, because of this, the local ecology, the local ecosystem. People must visit those areas to enjoy nature, period. People can have fun, people can have drinks, amusement parks, casinos, literally everywhere, in their basements also. But there are areas in this country which is just be explored to enjoy nature. अल्लाह की उसमें कुदरत को हम देखें और उसकी शान में देखें कि क्या, look at the beauty, look at the natural aspects of this country. So वहाँ पे, और ये बहुत clear, it's proven, जो eco tourism की जो investments होती हैं, they are very small compared to any other tourist project, because you involve local communities. आप उनके घर तक इस्तेमाल करते हैं, आप टैक्स इस्तेमाल करते हैं, आप अलाउ करते हैं कि सर्टेन एरियाज में सोलर पावर गाड़ी जाएगी, वहाँ पे ये इंटरनल कम्बशन इंजन और those vehicles or the diesel powered vehicles will not enter those areas because for XYZ reason. So I think the do's and don'ts at the planning stage, when you are finalizing your strategy, that's critically important, and then the operational controls to ensure that they are complied with. Everything will be served.
If I can add one thing, some people I understand what the panel is about saying. This I think perhaps is more aimed at the ECTC, right? From its implementation perspective, what are say 3 major, let's say wastewater was mentioned, other than waste?
That's a good question, and I think that because you are asking, if I'm not wrong, it's a very technical question. So perhaps it's again a little beyond the scope of this discussion. What Hammad told you was an overview of, but if you're talking about the actual practices of what kind of greening methodology, etc., we're very, very out of time. So unless someone really wants to ask a question, I think we have one gentleman here, then we wrap.
I don't need a mic, I can speak up. Sorry. But I was just saying that there was one aspect that I thought was missing from this conversation. We get many tourists to Pakistan, especially in the north, and I think parts of our south, who hunt for sport. And I was wondering if there's any legislation. I know WWF does a lot of work on advocacy for that. I sympathize with you fully. But for example, we can really market to people people, for example, there's so many campers who want to come to the base camp of the Daewoo to kind of just observe the snow level, for example, or the Mars or in their natural habitat. And that is something that avid campers or rock climbers really like to change that year round. And that is something that we could really monetize as well. But that is just something that many times in our national debate, buying a few Middle East conferences, never gets pushed in terms of legislation reform. And I was wondering if that was something on, I know it's on the WWF agenda, but I wonder if it's on the federal agenda. That's something that we are also looking into when we think about tourist development and configuration.
Short law. And they changed the law for a short period of time. And this question requires at least 2 hours session. So maybe you request the organizers, and I would love to be part of it.
I think that the questions have shown that this debate is by no means possible in the space of 1 hour. We can go on and on. It's been very interesting, especially the last 2 questions. They are debates in themselves. So with that, I would like to thank our panel. I think I'll end with something that Chima Sahab said, that we have a unique opportunity. That's a beautiful word. However, if we don't use this opportunity in a sensible way, we lose, like we're fast losing many of our assets already, we lose what we have. So, as everybody on the panel felt, that in collaboration, government, civil society, private sector, etc., together we can make a difference. Thank you, everybody.